Welcome to Cross Culture Critic. I'm Chris.
And I'm Joe.
Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I am hanging in.
What's new?
What is new? Well, I know this week we're going to delve into worship. And one of the new things is my daughter, after basically over the last year and a half, I play bass guitar. I screw around with bass guitar or whatever. And over the last year and a half, my daughter has kind of picked up my bass and started playing.
Okay.
So she was asked to play in the worship band at church, for the youth group. Well, the youth group praise band has gotten pretty big that I call it Big Church. Big Church has, the big leagues there have called up the youth band to play, and the first time they played was last Sunday.
Oh, nice.
And so my daughter played bass, and then my other daughter sang. And so over the past, year and a half, again, Ella's been playing bass, but a few months ago, she's like, Dad, I want to get, better. I mean, I taught her everything I knew, which was, after 15 minutes of conversation, that was it. She knew everything I knew. So she's like, Dad, I want to get better. Well, here in Royal Oak, we have a place called the School of Rock.
Okay.
And so we went and toured the School of Rock, and she had, an interview and all this stuff, and it's not that she got accepted, because if you pay the money, you go, right?
Right.
But she went, she had this little interview and all this stuff, and basically what they want to do is if you go in there to interview, they want it because they want to talk to a kid that wants to be there.
Right.
That wants to be doing it. So if you walk in and they're like, oh, tell us about yourself, what do you want to do? Why do you want to play bass? And they're like, because my mom wants me to learn how to play piano.
Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I'm sure they're going to be like, maybe this isn't for you, But so anyway, talked to him, we talked to him about it, and Ella was like, Dad, I so want to do this. Well, then we went to Hawaii. So I had some bills I had to pay off as far as Hawaii went. And she brought it up the other day. She's like, Dad, how long are you going to be paying off Hawaii? Because I'd like to start learning bass. Dad, I want to get better. So finally got her in there. And she's had 2 lessons. And what's funny is she's talking to the guy. And again, with us talking about worship this week, she gets in there and she's talking to the guy, and she's showing all her bad habits that I've taught her, and he's trying to change them and all these different things. And she's like, I just want to be able to play better. She's like, so when I'm in my praise band at church, I want to be able to just play a bunch of notes and just have a good time playing. And he looked at her, and here's a guy who I don't know his faith background. I don't know what it is. But he looks at her. His name's Rocco. That's
awesome.
her bass teacher's name is Rocco.
That would be the bass teacher.
He looks at her and he goes, sometimes you don't need to play more notes. Sometimes being in a worship band is just about playing your part. And that might be a simple part. And you just sit back and worship while you play your instrument. And so after that, after class number 1, lesson number 1, she comes out and she gets to the car. I'm like, hey, how'd you like it? And she started laughing. She's like, Dad, my very first, my very first lesson, I got humbled. And she's like, here I am thinking I'm going to learn how to play bass so I could just be like Flea and, from the Red Hot Chili Peppers in praise and worship band. And she's like, I kind of got put in my place that, the focus is not me playing, 100 notes a minute. It's why I'm doing it and stuff. So
that's awesome.
It was kind of a funny little lesson that she learned.
Now, do you go talk to Rocco ever and you're like, oh yeah, I was in a band, and
no,
he's just like, I never got to be.
I haven't. I try to stay away. Ella, I go drop her off, and I just sit in there and I hear everyone talking about all their stuff, and I don't know. I don't like to be that guy. I talk with my friends about being in the insiders and things like that, but I mean, times have changed. It's like Al Bundy talking about,
or Uncle Rico.
Yeah, beating Polk High back. At this point, I'm 40 years old. We stopped doing the inside. The last time I did anything insiders was, I think, 2012. So, I mean, it's been 5 years since we went to Europe. Prior to that, it was probably another 5 years. So, I mean, I haven't done the insiders full time since I was about 22 years old. So, I mean, that was 18 years ago. And so to, sit down and, whenever I get around musicians, whenever I sit around, it's like me and my police buddies, and we talk shop, everybody tries to one-up each other by saying, like, crazy stories, or, well, I found this dead body. Well, I found this dead body, and all these crazy situations. Well, I chased a guy a block and tackled him. Well, I chased him 2 blocks and jumped off a porch and, drop-kicked him, and, all these things, like, but when it comes to music, and that's fine and dandy for the present, but when it comes to anything, not just music, anything, if you're trying to, like, this guy's trying to teach my daughter bass, and I'm like, hey, well, guess what? Like, there's no good way, there's no good timing. Like, if Ella brings it up, and then he comes out and he's like, hey, I didn't know you did this, or, you did that. Like, sure, I'll converse with the guy about, life long ago. But that's one thing that I've learned over probably the last decade, that, like, when kids are getting in bands or kids are starting bands, like,
let it be their thing.
Yeah, let it be their thing.
Yeah.
Like, the last thing you want to do is just like, well, I did that. I was on MTV, and I did this, and I did that. Like, no one cares anymore, man.
Yeah.
You threw a touchdown against Polk High.
You don't sit there going, if I had a time machine, I know what I'd do.
Yeah.
Go back to the 92, play the Double Awards, kiss Amy Grant.
Right, exactly. 1997, Elevator with Amy.
There you go.
I would have told my buddy not to fart.
Well, that's awesome that your daughter's picking up the bass. That's so cool. I can't wait till my kid is doing something that's really cool like that, because he's playing t-ball right now, and that's not like a thing Dad used to do.
Right.
So he wants to do Cub Scouts now. That's his big thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of dreading that, because it means I'd have to go camping. And I'm not a huge camper.
Yeah.
But I would take him. He'd love it. We're going to Monster... Well, actually, by the time this airs, we'll have gone to Monster Trucks.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It is. It's he's kind of gotten into it in the past year because his cousins love it. And so he wanted to go to Monster Jam, so I got him tickets for his birthday. We're going to Ford Field. They sell out Ford Field for this.
Absolutely. It's a huge deal. Like, I never realized it. And years ago, this woman that I worked with at the Salvation Army, her name is Colleen, like, she's the most, like, I don't want to say prim and proper, but, like, she's the mom that her makeup was always phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Her hair was always phenomenal. Like, her clothes were always, you know what I mean, in style. Whatever the case may be, she was always like this prim and proper woman that, like, would never do this or would never do that. And she's like, yeah, we're going to Monster Truck. And I'm like, wait a second, you're going to Monster Truck Jam? Like, that's not you. Yeah. And she's like, we have a blast. Our whole family goes. Mm-hmm. We have a great time. And I've learned over the years, like, more and more people that do that same thing.
I went 10 years ago. My sister married a guy. My brother-in-law loves Monster Jam. He goes every year. And so one year he bought us tickets for Christmas. He's like, we're just the guys are going to Monster Jam. And I have to say, like, I was like, I'm not going to Monster Jam. but I went, and it's fun.
Did you take a flask?
No, they sold wine there, though.
What?
Like, I want to meet the guy who's drinking wine, who's drinking,
He's like, yeah, Grave Digger! Yeah. I'll take a Pinot Noir, 2014.
I want a Merlot, because it goes with my mullet. And,
right. Yeah. It goes with what goes best with the stadium dog with mustard.
You smell that? The diesel mixes with the tannins. It's really good. No, it is a blast, though. It taps into that little kid part of you that just loves seeing things smash. Like, it's this weird primal thing where these cars are just smashing and jumping over things. And you're like, oh, that is really cool.
And then the next one does, and you're like, wow, he did the exact same thing.
Oh, but look, now there's Robosaurus, and he's like a 100-foot tall metal dinosaur that eats a car.
I only remember that from Simpsons.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, we're doing that. So I'm
that's
excited.
Awesome.
It'll be fun.
That's real cool.
So, as you said, I kind of want to talk worship tonight, and there were some things recently that happened that made me think of it, but more than that, I just think it's an interesting topic because it's such a buzzword right now in church. Like, worship, it's a style of music. It's we have worship services, and I don't know that we ever sit down to think, well, what exactly is worship? Mm-hmm. And I think we relegate it to, well, it's the thing we do on Sunday mornings before the pastor talks. Mm-hmm. So I thought, maybe we'd sit and talk. You've done a worship album or two.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe this might be a good topic to talk about. So, I mean, to start with that, how do you usually answer when someone's like, what is worship?
To me, worship is I want to say the Christian equivalent of meditation. Like, I think meditation is like a worldly, like it's a worldwide word that people can use to like get in touch with their chi, or talk to Amun Ra, or you know what I mean, whatever, like whatever god they're worshiping, meditation gets them in contact with that entity. I think in Christian faith, I like to think that worship is what we're doing, that's our meditation. I don't know many Christians that go the meditation route where like they sit on a mat and like just think about Jesus.
Yes.
Like how a Buddhist would, or something like that. Like, I don't know anybody who like wakes up in the morning, makes their coffee, and like just sits there in silence, or just sits there and meditates. Like, to me, we as Christians, like, we worship. We'll get up, we'll make our coffee, like on vacation. We'll make our coffee, go out on the balcony of our hotel and watch that sunrise. And we just sit in silence, and we might read a little bit from scripture, and we watch that sun come up, and we just think, God, thank you. Like, not only did you create this, I'm looking at the sun thinking that's the son of God, Christ, and it's just dawning, and it's a new day to try and be a better person, to try and follow him better. All these things, and like, that's our worship. Like, we worship in what we're doing. And I feel like, for me, my opinion, like, that's our meditation.
Yeah.
And when that carries over into, like, in music, like, music is obviously a big one. So with our bodies, with our minds, with our voices, with everything, we are worshiping God through music. I don't believe we worship while we're sitting there listening to a pastor talk to us. Like, that's us listening to him. There's a lesson being taught, and we're learning at that point. I wouldn't say we're worshiping at that point.
I think you're prepping to worship.
You're prepping, yeah. And then, obviously in our modern day, Sunday services, you hear this message and you prep, and then you worship at the end in doing something. But I mean, I think whenever you're doing something, whenever you're active, whenever you're quote unquote meditating, that's our, in my opinion, as Christians, my definition is that's our meditation is when we worship. And we can worship by doing pottery. If I'm sitting there doing that spinning wheel and I'm creating with my hands, and I'm just the whole time I'm just worshiping and thanking God for the hands and the talent and the ability and the fun. Like, I think we miss that as Christians. Like, it's fun and to just have that relationship and be able to do that, and whether that's playing music or pottery or wood carving or fixing a car, and just getting out there, with your son or by yourself, and you're able to just use your hands and your talents and whatever your passion is, your love. Because I'm guessing if you don't like music, if you're not a music guy, like, praise and worship music isn't up your alley.
Yeah.
So you might like something, you might like to, worship in your own way. Like I said, with that sunrise or sunset, or like I said, fixing a car. If you can go out and tune your old 67 Chevelle up, and the whole time you're out there, you're just worshiping and praising God, and that's your time to meditate, that's worship to me.
I think that's a good answer. I think worship is like one of those words, like awesome, that we've robbed of all its power because we've relegated it to this. It's what we do on Sundays when we sing 3 songs before there's the sermon.
Yeah.
And I think that is a weak definition of worship. That's singing.
That is. That's all that is.
Worship is if you think of, use it in any other context, and you say, this guy worships his girlfriend. This guy worships money. This guy worships this. That's a powerful statement you're making.
Absolutely.
Their whole life is given over to this thing. And I think it was David Foster Wallace, the writer, said, everyone worships. We get to choose what we worship, but everyone worships something. It's whatever you have calibrated your life around. And that just doesn't, that expands beyond a Sunday. So I think the definition I heard is worship is all that I am responding to all that God is. And the reason I brought this up, and you actually hit on it when you said this, I'm going to name drop. I was interviewing John Foreman recently, the Switchfoot guy, and he did this documentary that's about, to celebrate this EP he put out. He played 25 concerts in the space of 24 hours across San Diego. So he would go to different spots, and he would just start playing songs. He'd do like 3 songs, then stop, move on. And it kind of struck me in that, like, there was an element of worship to that, because it was so communal, like people coming together to sing. And then there's one moment where they are on top of this mountain in San Diego singing, and the way he described it is everyone just stopped. He's like, there was no applause, there was no one talking, it was just all of us stopping to watch the sunset or sunrise, because that was something beautiful God had made. And he brought up that we kind of under-spiritualize things like that. Like, we don't give it enough credit that worship doesn't have to be this, I'm looking at doctrine, or I'm going, this reminds me of this, and this in the Bible. It's just this is what God has done.
Yeah.
Like, another thing that got me thinking was there's this movie coming out called The Riot and the Dance, and it's a creation movie. And so I was watching it. I think they're doing a one-night thing in theaters. And it's just kind of all about just these amazing creatures God made. So, like, he goes into the Idaho wilderness and is going through bogs and looking at snakes and stuff. He goes to Sri Lanka and is looking at bats and stuff. And the whole tone of it is, like, it's not preachy. It's just, look at this crazy, colorful stuff God made. He didn't have to make it this color. He didn't have to make it this intricate. Isn't this amazing that this just exists? And I, like, at that moment, I felt like in a state of worship, because I'm like, God didn't have to give us blue skies, and I think we rob worship of power when it's just this thing we do on Sunday mornings, before the sermon, after the offering.
Right. Well, let's try and defend church services. Like,
oh, sure.
There's usually a worship at my church they call it worship committee. And they try and plan out the service and how it would go, much to any of us, like as a parent, would plan out our kids' birthday parties, So you want to plan out your kid's birthday party for having a fun time and to celebrate your kid. Your kid is turning 10.
Yeah.
So you want everything to lead up to him turning 10, similar to them planning how the church is going to lead up to the sermon and the message. And so all they're doing is planning opportunities for people to participate and worship. It's up to us to go in there and say, you know what, I have my phone on, I got this, you know what, I got a ton of crap, at home, I got this going on and this going on. It's up to you, in this world where we think everything is going to be given to us, we still have to take control and self-control to be able to say what we do, when we do it, and shut things off. And I am so guilty because now my work schedule, I work Sundays. Every other Sunday, I have it worked out with a friend of mine that every other Sunday, he comes in and works 4 hours for me.
Okay.
So every other Sunday, roughly that's 8 hours that he works for me a month. So once a month, I work 1 day for him. So I pull a double once a month, and then he gives me 2 half days.
Okay.
So I end up getting to church at 11 o'clock. That's when it starts. So I get out of work at 11. I have a 5-minute drive to my church. I just changed out of my uniform and everything like that, and I'm booking it to get to church. And I get in there, and church is already going, and I go and I sit down, and I, hey kids, how you doing? Mom, thanks for bringing the girls up, blah, 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 blah. And I got so much stuff running through my head. I don't have that time to and get into worship. So usually with me, my getting into worship is, how they always play that last song before they let you out of church?
Yes.
It's like that. So it's like me, getting situated, getting all that I just went through that morning out of my head, trying to relax, trying to get into a state of worship, listening to the message, and then worshiping during that last one. Whereas I kind of wish that I didn't work Sundays so I could come in knowing, hey, church starts at 11. I'm getting there at 9:30 for Sunday school. I'm getting tuned up for Sunday school. I'm getting the old thinking cap on and all that stuff and getting ready. So by the time 11 o'clock rolls around, I've had, an hour and a half to get myself right, as my academy instructor used to say, get your minds right. I've had an hour and a half to get my mind right, and I'm going to enter into worship because that's what I'm at church for. And it's really tough to do right now when I'm running in, at 11:05 or 11:10. Church is already 10 minutes in. I've kind of missed that decompress, get ready for worship.
Well, but I also think, too, like, that gets into it, too. Like, you are taking time when you could be doing something else, when you could be working. You could give you couldn't be working a double shift. But you're saying, no, this is important. I'm here. Even if there's not an internal feeling all the time, I think that alone is worship. That you are showing up at church because you're making it that time. And I don't want to make it sound like I was poo-pooing the Christian service.
No, I didn't think... No, I don't think you were.
But, yeah, I find it a lot the same thing. Like, I have 2 young kids, and Sunday mornings suck.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get 2 kids who don't want to get dressed nice, they don't want to get in the car, they want to sit home and watch Teen Titans, and we're trying to get them to church. And I will say we are not the family who bounds into church happy and bright-eyed. We are fighting on the way there. I'm yelling at the kids, get in the car.
The divorce is being drawn up.
Yeah, we get to church and we are like, put on your church faces, we're faking this right now. But to me, I've come to find that Sunday morning so important not because I feel like there's a worshipful attitude I have, but it calibrates me to that. So I'm taking the time and I'm singing, and I've heard someone say you're not singing what you believe all the time. Sometimes you're singing like what you hope to believe. And I can go into church and say, I'm not feeling this morning.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here, but God, I know it's important, and even if we've sang this song 5 times in 3 weeks, I'm going to sing it again, and I need you to change me. And I think in a way that is worship too. It's it's like what you said with your daughter. I'm not playing an important part of that. I'm not there to smile and be happy and steal the show.
To put on a show. You're there to lead worship.
I'm coming to church. Well, I'm coming to sing and worship in the congregation, but I'm like, I'm not here for me. I'm here because I know I'm screwed up and I need God to change me and shift my attitude in this next hour. Yeah. Because I have a whole week that I got to get through where I don't have this. I think I get a little more frustrated, not when it's... I think we rob the word of power, but I also think, like, the whole idea of making money off worship, is something I still don't know yet. Are there any... do you listen to worship music at all?
I do.
It's also a genre of music.
I do, and one of the biggies is when we talk about worship, when I get most of mine in, and the times that I do sit back and truly worship are usually on my days off, and my days off are Wednesdays and Thursdays, and I will, in the shower in the morning, I got my Bluetooth speaker, blasting it, and I'm just singing and having a good time in there. Or on my drive to work.
Okay.
Usually I get up in the morning, I'll take my kids to school, and then on my way into work, I'll play a song. For me, lately, if you guys are on iTunes or whatever, I'm sure it's in other places, but I've been listening to this. I don't know if it's by Transmission is the name of the band, and the name of the album is Majestic. Yes, that's what it is.
Okay.
So Transmission is the name of it, but the song that I've been listening is Fountain Doxology.
Okay.
Now my daughter had to play that. That's what she played in church 2 Sundays ago. And so she was practicing at home, practicing on her bass. And so I pulled the song up so she could kind of listen to it and kind of get ready for Sunday. And I was listening to it, so I knew what she would be playing. And this song, I'm a dozen times while I'm driving to work in the morning. It's, 6:20 in the morning. I'm the only one on the road on a Saturday morning driving into Royal Oak. And I got tears coming down my face, and I'm like screaming the words to this song because I love it. And that is my time of worship. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I'm running into church and sitting down, no, I don't feel that way at all. But as far as like the money aspect and albums and like what albums I listen to. This is one that I'm doing right now. And I think that because I'm now removed from the business of Christian music, I can, I'm removed from it. So I don't know who the new players are in the business world. I don't know who the main players are as far as the actual players, the artists, you know. All I know is I enjoy pulling up songs and listening to them. And in this day and age, when I pay $10 a month for Apple Music and I get everything, I'm not buying albums anymore.
That's true.
Back in the day when the Insiders, when we put out Scalleluja, people, like, we got destroyed, like, reviews or things like that because people were saying, like, the Insiders are taking praise and worship music and are just like prostituting it out. Like our album sold really well. We were on Billboard Heat Seekers, all these different things. We won a Dove Award with it. So people were just like, the Insiders have come in. They're this, you know, the at the time, you know, punk ska or ska was like the big wave in music, and they're riding this wave and they're just collecting money on the way. When, if you've listened to our interview in the past, like the first one we ever did together, the reason that Scalleluja came about is really, to me, very honorable in how we did it. And so the Insiders, in short, when we started, we knew that we wanted to be a ska band, but we didn't know how good we were. So what we would do to practice was we would take praise and worship songs and what we would call it, ska them up. And then we would play as the youth group band for our own church, for our peers. We would practice in front of them and do all that stuff. So we honed our skills by playing basically covers. Well, we would play these songs and we would play praise and worship songs. And then once we got good at our instruments and figured out what everyone was good at and how we wanted to be as a band, I started writing originals. So when we've got our first gig, we go out and it's, you know, a normal secular show. We didn't know there was such thing as a Christian scene. We would go to these, you know, normal clubs. We're playing with other punk bands and everything like that. And we would come out and we would play our 3 original songs, but we'd have to fill 20 minutes or a half hour. So we'd play our 3 originals and be like, you know, people would be like, more, you know, we want more. So we'd be like, well, let's play a praise and worship song. So we'd end up playing praise and worship in these like punk clubs, these dives, you know, these awesome places to play throughout Detroit. And we'd play it. So when our first album came out and it was all originals, like our fans were like, hey, where's this praise and worship? We love going to your concert and just worshiping with you guys. Because eventually our calling card became like, if we had say a half-hour set, 20 minutes of it would be originals, and then the last 10 would be praise and worship. And we didn't care where we were. That was the way that we were bringing the message to those that don't go to church. And that was the mission of the Insiders, was to do that. And that's what we did. And so then we would have people that after Motor City Ska came out, our first album, people are like, hey, where's the... Like, I thought Awesome God. I thought, you know, all these other songs I can't think off the top of my head. All these other songs would be on this, and they're not. And so it was an outcry of our fans, not an outcry of a 45-year-old woman that was walking into the Bible bookstore that were trying to get her to buy our album. It was our fans. If we had 5,000 fans across the United States, we were trying to get the music that they were asking into their hands. So when we weren't in their city, they could listen to it and worship. And that's what they were asking for. They were saying, I don't like, you know, at my church, I go to a small church. We're not blessed with a music section. So we have the 75-year-old lady who's hammering out, bringing in the sheaves on the organ. I want your music. And that's why we did it. We didn't do it to cash in on, we're going to put all these posters up, and everyone who comes in the Bible bookstore, we're going to hit them with Scalleluja on full blast and make them buy this, and it's praise and worship, and we're going to cash in. Like, I didn't cash in, man. I mean, we didn't cash in. You know, sorry to disappoint. We put that music out for the kids that asked for it.
And I think, like, it's such a weird line to walk because, like, well, why are you making money off worship music? Well, why is your pastor making money off preaching? You know, we sometimes you need to make money, but I also think, like, there's a difference in a ska band that says, hey, we're just going to do the songs we like, and these are the songs we do at church, and they're fun, and we're going to do it, and people like it, so let's keep doing it, as opposed to, you know, and this is probably more industry-driven than anything, you know, the record exec who's like, well, Chris Tomlin sells really well, so let's find more people who are like him,
right,
who are going to write these things that churches are then going to, you know, and Chris Tomlin, I think, gives away all his stuff for free, like, for churches to do. But, like, let's bring this in so churches can buy this music and sing this, and we'll make more. Like, when it's a calculated thing, I think you can sniff it.
And here's the other thing. You're not paying, like, you got to look at it for what it is. Like, you're not paying, people aren't prostituting worship music and saying, you know, well, we should we be paying for praise and worship music? Look, man, if you got a good praise and worship band that's in your town, that's in your church, that's down the street, then by all means, go listen to them and have it for free.
Yeah.
But what you have to realize is if you're buying a CD or you are going to a concert, there's logistics that play into that that you can't sit back and say, well, why are the insiders here? I want to be able to go, they're here in Tampa. I want to be able to go to their show in Tampa. I should be able to go in there and listen to them play their praise and worship music because that's what Christ would have done. Okay, I understand. Like, I understand what you're trying to say there. But let's look at this for what it is. There's 9 guys packed in a van that have lives, that have bills to pay, that are driving from Detroit to Tampa with many stops in between. We have gas to pay. We have strings to buy on our guitars. We have, you know, again, all the bills that go along with it. So when you look at it like that, you can't just not charge. When you're talking about CDs and stuff like that, someone's got to print those CDs. You know, when music is written, that music has copyrights. That music has, you know, royalties that are attached to it. So you have to pay for those things. If you want worship to be free, then go to your church and enjoy that. But if you want your worship to come from somebody else's artistic creativity, you can't bash those people that are using their creative outlet in a business where it costs money to get that out. And so you can't say, insiders, I want your stuff for free, and here we, like, if we can't pay our bills, we can't be the insiders. So you're going to get one album, we're going to quit, and we're going to get real day jobs. Like, we have to be able to make our bills and all that stuff. And people, I don't want to say people, some people, a small fraction, I would say, of the people that I've met throughout my career think that way.
Well, and honestly, I mean, there could be a band out there making money off this, you know, making money for putting that out, and their hearts are great, and they are creative, and they're doing this all for God, and you might get mad that they're making money, but you get the guy at the church down the road who's not making money off it, but he loves that spotlight. You know what I mean? And he's doing it because he knows, oh, people look up to him, or the girls pay more attention to him, or something. And you can't really judge the heart that way.
No, not at all.
Like, I think as a whole, trying to make it an industry kind of is leery to me. Like, when you say, let's find the new hot worship artist.
Right.
I don't like that. But, man, I mean, there are groups who I love who are commercial who have done worship albums that I'm like, yeah, I will gladly pay for this because you know what? I want to support what you're doing because it feels fresh and it feels from your heart. Like, I've talked about the Wren Collective before. They're an Irish folk band. They do Christian worship music, and they're fantastic. Gungor, I don't know if you've heard anything by them. They, well, okay, their faith has kind of shifted. I don't know what they really believe anymore. But they did concept albums, worship concept albums, like one all about the creation story and songs based on, and it was so good. The Gettys, they do music. Probably if you sang a worship song at church, you sang their song. Like In Christ Alone was their big one.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And I love them. I've seen them in concert a few times, and it's always, you can just tell they are out there because they are passionate about it. I have no problem giving them money. You know, and I think the key is, I mean, it comes back down to worship is not an external thing necessarily. It starts inside, and it's kind of like on Sundays. You can all be singing the same songs, smiling. What's your heart like? It's a heart check. And I think that's the thing we miss a lot is worship is so internal, and it has to be because it's how you transform. You become more like Christ.
Right.
So
now I do just want to clarify one thing that you said. When the industry says this is the new hot thing, let's go get it. I do want to clarify. There's a difference between a record company saying this is the next big thing. So let's say Five Iron Frenzy is huge, Supertones are huge, and a record company says we need a ska band. We need a Christian ska band on our label. The Insiders, I've heard some things about these guys in Detroit. So if that label goes and grabs the Insiders from Detroit, we can look at it as that's that money hungry, you know, we need this.
Or they're giving a band a chance.
But if you look at the other side of the coin, here's the Insiders working their butts off, playing 400 shows a year, and they get their break. So there is that side of it that we got to watch. What I would, to clarify, like the comment of like there's this industry that goes out and finds it, is the one that puts it together.
Okay, yeah.
And so
let's not go find it. Let's make it.
Exactly. Yes. Let's make it. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to take, you know, we need a good Christian ska band. Well, this guy that plays this club that does, you know, porn on the side, he plays really good bass.
And
so we're going to
Jesus though.
And yeah, so he's going to be our bass player. This guy over here is our drummer. He's an atheist. He's a drug addict, but he's an awesome drummer. So we're going to get him to do this. And they put this band together of people that aren't Christians as a collective, but that are fantastic musicians.
Yeah.
And then they get a singer that, hey, these are the lyrics that you're going to sing, but they don't necessarily buy into it. That's where I think the money grubbing comes in.
Absolutely agree.
You know what
Absolutely
I mean?
agree.
So there is a difference between a record company putting a collective together and saying, these are the lyrics that you're going to sing, and the finished product is you hear this amazing praise and worship band because everyone playing instruments is amazing, the singer is amazing, and the words are amazing. But it doesn't mean at the root is Christ, and that's what they were going for. Then you can have the Insiders who the singer sucks, you know, they don't know how to deal with their own lives, but they all love Jesus, and they got a shot from you know, a label that's like, hey, we can make money off these guys. Let's see if they want to join our label. That's a little bit different, but that's just how the industry is. And if you know, if you want free worship, you can find free worship out there. But if you're going to take somebody else's artistic creativity, whatever, yeah, you may have to pay for that. But at the end of the day, it's all, just like you said, it's internal. It's what you could listen to that band that was put together as a collective, and you could just worship your butt off to that music, not knowing that those guys are all just doing it for, you know, I played drums on this album. I made $3,000, you know, playing drums for 3 days. We're not touring. We're not doing anything. We just put out this album that made millions because it was the best worship album of, you know, 3 decades, you know, as rated by Billboard or whatever. And these guys just don't care. They got their money and they went on with their lives. But if you can praise to that song and you can worship God and our Creator through that, and you can find that place and where the focus is there and it gets you, hey, praise God. That's what it's there for.
And I think it's easy to pick on music for this because that's what we associate with worship a lot is you know, music, because the Psalms are our worship, and in our worship service we sing. But I mean, as a writer, you know, I write about God, and I know that can be, you know, that should be seen as an act of worship. I'm giving my writing to God. Well, what's my motive in that? And someone can write something that's more theologically sound than me, more persuasive than me, more moving than me, and doing it because they know I can write this and get people to read it. Like, and when I write, I have to say, am I feeling this? Do I believe this? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Or am I saying this because I know the Christians will eat it up and give me some clicks and give me some money?
Yeah.
It's a gut check, and I think that's why worship. I think that's what I hate more than anything. Like I said before, is like when we water down that word because it's such a powerful thing. how am I responding to the creator of the universe in this given moment?
Yeah.
And, this podcast can be, I hope it is an act of worship in a way. Like, it's kind of the overflow of everything that God is teaching us spilling out into this, or of our lives spilling out into this. And it's sometimes silly, and it's sometimes, I don't know, sarcastic, but I hope there's something genuine there and worshipful that comes from this.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to leave it today.
Absolutely.
But I think it's probably a topic that'll come up more and more. Where can people find you?
You could probably listen through the past episodes that we've done. I think I say something different every time.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook somewhere. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Xbox Live. And I'm on Cal Cagno Radio Podcast.
I'm on Twitter at Mere Chris-ianity. I am on Pathos at Mere Chris-ianity. And occasionally I co-host the podcast. It's my favorite. So I'll link to all those in the show notes. So we will see you next week.
See ya.